Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. As always, we have our co-host Sridhar Chityalaji joining me, and today we have a lot to cover. A lot of things happening in and around the world: Russia, Ukraine, United Kingdom, as well as in China. So, without further delay, let's welcome the co-host of the show, Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, Namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel, sir.
Namaskar, good morning to everybody, and looking forward to a very interesting session today.
Sridharji, first off, Rishi Sunak, how important is his appointment as the Prime Minister of United Kingdom? Lots of murmurs still going on whether he will be, able to pull it off because they are saying that he's wearing a thorn-filled crown. Crown. So I think so. What exactly is he there for?
Well, I think if you go back to the market summary section,
Yes.
he posed the same question. And I said my choice would be Rishi Sunak. Thank you. And the UK, the Conservative Party has done the right thing. First and foremost, I think if you listen to his 10 Downing Street presentation or the address to the as he took on the prime ministership role, he laid out his priorities. The biggest thing is that economic priority is the number one, and number two, he says that the society is badly impacted, just as how they addressed during the COVID as the Chancellor of the Exchequer when he was in reign, focused on small businesses and the lower strata of the society in terms of addressing. So he is going to focus. He made that very clear. That's number two. And number three, I think that in the reputational part, as far as the markets is concerned. And fourth, I think he said the Russia-Ukraine war is creating a problem, and it is creating a problem not only on the energy side, but also on the supply chain. So I think he laid out and he thanked his predecessor, Liz Truss, quite generously. Yes, some mistakes were made. We're going to try and fix it. So I think, in my view, he's laid out the principles and he's competent enough to tackle the issue. As far as all this noise, this you would expect. First and foremost, he becomes the first Asian prime minister. He comes from, a very, very impressive academic type of background. He's very young. So you will have lots of objections, and British media is very notorious and well-known and probably on top of the totem pole as far as the wokeism is concerned. So you can expect all of those things, Sriji.
And thank you so much for that update, sir. And we will see how things play out. But people are generally of the opinion that if he can fix the economy, he will be able to win the elections for the Conservative Party next time around, which is coming up, I think, in a year and a half or so. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Let's take a look at China. Some surprises, Sridharji, about who made it to the Politburo, especially the person who is the Prime Minister designate, Li Qiang. Sir, kind of tell us how important is the position of the Prime Minister? Because we all know that General Secretary is the be-all and end-all in the CCP. What does the Prime Minister do?
Well, he technically becomes an aspirant to be either the general secretary if they decide to devolve the powers from the current structure that they have, which is namely all in one is Mr. Xi Jinping. Typically, they try to divide the role, which is the CCP secretaryship, then the presidency, and then, of course, you have the head of the PLA, the three powerful, and then one who runs also the Politburo comprising of 7. So it's very clear that there was, if you have to use the phrase, that Xi Jinping has done his homework and he seems to have knocked out most of the people. And that is very visible, in terms of the choice. So I think his right-hand man has been chosen from Shanghai to be the premier. So that just is also, it's a recognition for the way he apparently handled the COVID situation there. But most of these guys are his so-called handpicked men, who would not pose any threat during his tenure, Sriji.
Wang Yi manages to continue to be the foreign minister. They call it the wolf warrior diplomacy. A little bit on what a wolf warrior diplomacy means, sir.
Well, just simply, they hunt. they smell and hunt. So therefore, he's gone there to pay, and also they're very devilish in terms of their approach. If you want to know what wolfish diplomacy is, that you should see what happened between India and China on the Doklam issue. You should also see what happened in the tensions between United States and China, especially the disastrous Alaska meeting. So you can see that he's very assertive. He's wolfish because we don't know what's going to come out. He wears one set of clothes, but he could turn out to be something different. But he's played that very well. He is very well known to the diplomats around the world. And the fact that they have regained him is an emphasis of two important points. They still consider United States or India number one and United States number two as potential looming issues in the horizon. More than Xi Jinping, it is Wang Yi, who basically deals with this issue. So that is my kind of conclusion, he being appointed.
Sridharji, you mentioned something that is very, very close to you, both of our hearts, that is the China versus India. To my mind, three things that happened over the last few years have not been fully explained away, and the needle of suspicion points towards China. One, they've even claimed it. That was a power outage they showed in Mumbai for 13 hours in 2020, I believe. And then the dam in Uttarakhand that gave way. It was a surprise, and people say that there was some foul play there. And the third was the assassination or the killing of the CDS Rawat, General Rawat. Now, are these things sort of like China telling India, we can do whatever you want, whatever we want, there's nothing you can do? Is that why India is sort of playing very, very quietly about all these salami tactics at the border, sir?
I think that I think we will cover this in one more part in the US section. But let me respond to your question, which is effectively, I think India says we will take punishment. You may have penetrated, you may have on ground wolfish, silent warriors on ground, but we know how to deal with a wolf. Okay, we can throw in enough Godzillas to tackle these wolves. That's what we demonstrated, not only in Galwan, but in Doklam. Okay, so therefore, if you have built infrastructure, we have built infrastructure, and we are now fully equipped to deal with you. And I think that is the message that India is continuing to send. And as I mentioned to you, that there are two diplomats or two very experienced professionals in India, namely Mr. Dowell and Dr. Jaishankar, who know Wang Yi extremely well and the way he plays the politics. And when everything went wrong in Doklam, the person who resolved, and especially when Mr. Modi and Mr. Xi Jinping were going at each other, the person who came in and said, we need to talk and get this out of the way because otherwise it's becoming a problem, was Wang Yi. He went to Mr. Dowell, and that became the process for the resolution of that matter. So they knew that both of them know how to play their chessboard, if I have to say, quite well. But as you rightly said, expect trouble.
Thank you, sir. And this was a refreshing point of view because I wanted to make sure our viewers understand not everything you get in the media from both sides may be the truth. There's something more hidden, something that is not on the surface. It is below the surface. That's what you're hearing Sridharji say. So understand that all we are trying to say is that even though India might be taking some knocks, it is definitely having something in its back pocket and it could surprise China. I'll leave it at that, sir. Let's go to the next point. In United States news, US has charged 10 CCP spies. I thought only there were 2, but now it has become 10 in an alleged espionage campaign targeting Americans to forcibly repatriate dissidents. Not only that, they have taken people in various walks of life considered to be specialists in their field, somehow arm twisted them and have taken them back to China. The numbers are mind-boggling, Sridharji, from 10,000 to 1 million. So the number is like quite a large number. And some of this stuff How it plays out is, in fact, detailed in my book, Who Painted My State Purple. I hope you have read it because you get a full idea of how this thing happens. I wrote that thing close to a year and a half ago. It still stays true. In fact, if anything, everything that is written in that book is becoming even more solidified. Your take, sir.
Well, I think we remember those days when, precursor to that book, there's a lot of informational flow. So therefore, I vividly recall, and we got a lot of angst from P group viewers that we were kind of, playing one side of the trick, but truth turns out to be different. But your point, actually, now the latest news is now actually 13 people have been arrested or charged around four important variables. First and foremost is these people have been looking for the dissidents living in China, secretly trying to compromise or ferry them out of the country. That's number one. Number two is that any Chinese corporation which is potentially compromised using these sleeper cells to effectively help combat, Huawei comes to mind, but there are several other companies which we can talk about. Number two, and number three, even more important, which is namely to act as secret agents to socialize and propagate the CCP agenda within United States. You want to know who some of these people are? You can turn up in many of the well-known channels. You can, they turn around every other day and stand up and say why we must do this, why we must not do this, etc. So I think that's the third agenda. And I think fourth, which is even more troublesome, is to basically, this has been going on for years, is to be the agents to steal information of security and other strategic importance and then ship it to China. So four areas have been the focus, and they believe that they have charged about 13 people. Remains to be seen to what extent, whether this is a political stunt or whether they will go the full distance. This is the Department of Justice, and more to come.
And by the way, at 9 p.m. IST, your only specialist, or one and only, I shouldn't say only, the one and only Elmer Yuan will be here to talk to us about Xi's new team of 7, the things that perhaps they don't want us to know. Don't miss that event. Elmer has been prepping for this for a while because we thought that some people were going to make it and they did not make it. That was a surprise, but still, many who have been China watchers have got 6 out of the 7 correct, and only one, Wang Yang, was a surprise exclusion. Other than that, many people have done the math now. People are up on how the things, the machinations that take place in the CCP take on. So we know that. So please do tune in at 9 p.m. Sorry for this long introduction for the program that is coming up. It's important because we need to know how these people are going to play, some of the challenges that are coming. First off, Israel has been told by US to tighten restrictions on Chinese investments. Sridharji, I thought Israel was pretty well off. Are they also seeking Chinese investment? That's not a good thing, sir.
No, China has a very strategic partnership with Israel. India opened up more in more recent times. Israel has had a very strong partnership going back in time in the area of defense, in the area of technology, in the area of agriculture, in the area of irrigation systems. Remember, China is a vast land, suffers from significant drought. That's why they've been attacking river systems and trying to take over countries which can give them enough produce to feed its people, etc. So there has been a long-standing relationship. United States is very concerned around 2 areas. One is the chip, the technology around the semiconductors, and second is around defense, because there's a very strong strategic cooperation between United States and Israel. So I think they are saying, you watch out, otherwise you could have a problem.
Next time around, when elections come in Israel, do you think Netanyahu will be back, sir, or is it going to be somebody else?
I think that there's a very, very strong possibility for Netanyahu to come back, provided the Naftali Bennett faction, sinks their differences, and Naftali and Netanyahu says, okay, I'll be the president, you will be the deputy, you've already been the prime minister, we'll have a transition plan so that you have broader coalition. So, but Benjamin Netanyahu is a man with immense pride and ego. I don't know whether he would do it, but he needs Neftali to get across the line.
And it is election time in 2 weeks in the United States. What are the issues? Inflation, immigration, crime, abortion, education, and energy. And many races have tightened up. And now I think the Republicans are smelling victory at both Congress and Senate. Sridharji, the big picture was that somehow it was thought that Democrats can pull it out, at least a lead in the Senate, or at least maintain the 50-50 balance. How do things look today, sir? Overall, big picture.
The big picture is that if you have to believe polls, the Senate, the Republicans believe that they can win anything from 5 to 7 seats. And on the House, I think that they believe they can take a very decisive majority based on discontent that is prevailing around 2-3 specific issues, which some of which you touched on. But as I mentioned to you last week, nothing is done until the fat lady sings. So let's wait and see. And that is why Republicans this time are sparing no effort, and they are taking up a number of issues which we flagged, which probably got featured in Who Turned My State Purple.
Who painted my state purple?
Who painted my state purple, and featured, which is namely around all the stuff that we showcased and nobody believed in the election saga.
We are laughing our way. The bank is not very far though. So let's wait and see. On a different matter, very serious matter, it is believed that the United States has diesel supply for only 25 days. Sridharji, I thought President Biden has ordered that the strategic petroleum reserve be tapped again.
No, that's petroleum. That is to fill up your cars. This is diesel. Okay. So they have to come up with a plan for the diesel. Where does United States use diesel? All the trucks that ferry materials and goods from state to state, coast to coast, uses diesel. All the equipment that is used for farming, for running your generators, for irrigation, and for even your basic domestic stuff, we use diesel. We don't use gas, as we say, right? So therefore, we use diesel. So it has a significant consequence to not only the supply chain, but the energy ecosystem. Lo and behold, they've woken up now and they suddenly say, we are going to make sure that we'll make all efforts and all circumstances to make sure that the diesel supply is not disrupted. But let's wait and see, because we saw the Afghan disaster, we saw the immigration disaster, we saw economic disaster. So we're now going to be confronted with energy disaster, especially around the diesel side.
And folks, stay tuned, because there are a couple of more big items that we have yet to cover. And here is the next big one, the Russia-Ukraine war. As both Russia and Ukraine engage in alleged dirty bomb campaign, US and Russian defense officials meet to contain the issue. Now, this is very important, because now it is emerging that the liberal section of the Democratic Party, not the progressives, are now telling Biden administration, you better start talking to Russia, because I think there is no other way to bring this war to a close. This is what I'm hearing, because people are beginning to feel the heat. Let's admit it. They're not hardly 2 weeks away, and the Democrats are in a bit of a pickle. They are wooing Hindus, for example. There was a Diwali party, a big one in White House. There was another one in the Vice President's house. So you can see that the Democrats are sweating. But what were they thinking when we were coming out with all these different moves? So anyway, you have to pay the piper. Sridharji, Russia-Ukraine saga, what good is going to be coming out of the talks between US and Russia? I mean, where is the dirty bomb? Has it already been put in place? What is the status on that?
The status is very simple. First, what will come out? At least they have to start talking, whether something comes out or not. They have not talked since, I think May or March of this year. So first and foremost, they seem to have had two conversations. Again, as is consistent with Biden administration, two inconsistent teams come out. One from Jack Sullivan and one from Lloyd Austin. But at least they're talking. That's number one. Number two, is the dirty bomb? It looks like that there is no smoke without fire. So there is somewhere dirty bomb. Why there is somewhere dirty bomb? Well, first and foremost, both the countries are denying that there will be dirty bomb. For example, Ukraine is saying Russia is almost ready to use a dirty bomb. Why? They have asked their people to vacate from the south, the Kherson region. Okay, so Russia is asking people to vacate from the Kherson region. Many embassies, for example, India,
including
India, have said, leave Ukraine. Now, what's a dirty bomb? It is a bomb which contains radioactive material. When it explodes in a specific area, I'm not defense, but we read about it, so I'm giving you, defense experts can give much better opinion than me, but it's apparently, it basically makes that whole area, the radioactive footprint, all know what happens when you have a radioactive footprint. So to that extent now, who makes the first strike? And Russia wants to go to United Nations and talk about it today. It's very, very interesting, Sriji. As a result, who has it? Probably both have it.
So that's a very interesting development that Russia wants to convene the United Nations Security Council to talk about the dirty bomb. So each will say that the other one has it or something like that. So let's wait and see how that plays out. Most importantly, the United States is now considering supplying Hawk missiles to Ukraine to better defend itself against the drone attacks and the missiles that are hitting Kiev and other big cities. This is something that is a new development. You have to remember, viewers, that the US does not give all the weapons to Ukraine. In fact, not even the state-of-the-art weapons. So Ukraine has been making do with what they have been given. And now people are saying that of 100 drones that are being launched by Russia against Ukraine, perhaps 20% are finding their way to the target, and that is what they are trying to tackle. This is just information. This is not something that is, nobody's able to count it, but they're just giving you a picture that Ukraine is admitting that it is taking some hits. So we have to wait and see how this Hawk missile development is. So, and the bigger picture is now the fact that many countries are evacuating their citizens from Ukraine. That's a bad news. Now, let us wait and see what happens. In the meantime, we have also got Russia vacating the Kherson region, which means Russia is essentially saying of the 4 big areas that it had occupied, the Donbass includes 2, and the others were the Kherson region and the Kharkiv region. The Kherson region, we've been talking about the bridge that was taken down by Ukraine and so on and so forth. Now, I think Russia is basically saying that I think we are going to vacate this area. Sridharji, that could also trigger them to use the dirty bomb, isn't it?
Well, I think this is, Vladimir Putin is as I mentioned, we have mentioned repeatedly in the shows, what exactly is his game plan? We don't know. But one thing is very clear. He is not prepared to lose this war. And he also knows that the West is not unified and united in its stand. And so therefore, he's saying, you want to play the game, then I'm going to play the game. And I know how to use limited nuclear weapons. I've tested and used it in various places. I have all options. And his message to both West and Ukraine is, the day you hit the bridge in Crimea, all games up as far as that was a civilian infrastructure. That is his view. And Ukraine says, no, that's a military infrastructure because that's a supply line. So therefore, and that was what triggered the whole escalation process. And this is true that 30% of the energy infrastructure in Ukraine have been targeted and hit by the Russians. Now he's preparing the Kherson region for evacuation. Would that be the battleground? Possibly.
And many EU national leaders, development experts, and CEOs are gathering in Berlin on Tuesday to come up with a Marshall Plan to rebuild Ukraine. So German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and EC President Ursula von der Leyen will preside over this meeting. viewers, for those of you who don't know what a Marshall Plan is, this was the plan put in place by the United States, perhaps maybe you can say even the then NATO, to bring the battered Germany back to some sort of an order. The West Germany, that used to be called the Federal Republic of Germany, and then the West Berlin inside East Germany. You see, this was on a small island. In Berlin itself was split into two. There was West Berlin and East Berlin, and that had to be completely airlifted in and out. It was an amazing plan that was put in place. Sridharji, how do we draw parallels from the Marshall Plan to today's Ukraine, sir?
Well, the parallel that one can draw is that it is very much reminiscent. Leaders from across Europe, the CEOs, the infrastructure, and it is a coordinated effort between Germany. Strangely, Germany is again at the center. It's being held in Berlin, and the EU head of the EU Commission, which is Madam Ursula. So therefore, you have, and they though from my sources, the number that is being mentioned is somewhere close to about 780 million euros, or close to €1 billion, to effectively reconstruct Ukraine from the ravines. And as we kind of got onto the show, the German president is in Ukraine, assuring them of all support, not only to defend, but also to rebuild Ukraine. So when you look at the game that is being played out in relative to what we mentioned about all the stuff that Russia is attempting to do, and then Ukraine trying to respond, Europe is very clear. They are not giving up Ukraine, and they will make every effort to make sure that it is preserved, protected, and reinvigorated. That is a very big message on the same day that Russia is attempting to go to United Nations Security Council. I think today there is a meeting that is being planned, later in the morning, but probably around noon. It's still coming to about close to 9 o'clock in New York. So somewhere around noon, this meeting is being contemplated.
And viewers, stay tuned. We'll be giving you updates tomorrow in our DGI. Lastly, events around Asia. The Saudi Crown Prince MBS will be visiting India in mid-November at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi, and to travel to, and both of them will be traveling to the G20 summit in Indonesia. And is Iran conducting war preparations near the Iraq border? And the Korean Peninsula is warming up, with both South and North Korea exchanging fire over the weekend. Wrap it up for us, Sridharji, starting from the MBS visit. How significant is that?
It's a very significant moment for India, and very significant for Saudi Arabia to accept. Just one day ago, MBS declined the Islamic State visit, saying that he is not well and he will not be able to make it, but he's going to make his trip to India. And this is just one day prior to the summit in G20 summit in Indonesia. Remember, next year the G20 summit is going to be conducted and held by India. So this is very strategic on the energy side. I think there's also going to be some acrimony at the G20 summit. So some kind of soft working is going on. And it's also an endorsement by India, the importance of Saudi Arabia in the overall geopolitical equation, particularly with energy in mind. So number one. But more worrying situation is the war exercises that are going on the border of Iraq. And remember, Iran has always believed that Iraq is a Shia state. Are they going to use this vulnerable moment with forces of sympathy within Iraq to do something? Remains to be seen. Because look at US. On strategic front, it has depleted energy resources. It has depleted diesel resources. It is fully stretched with its wokeism on the army front. It has got troubles from west to east to Asia. And at this is the most vulnerable point. If some intelligence has been shared by Russia with Iran, remains to be seen. And while that goes on, our Korean man, he keeps on firing and trying to play over the weekend with the South Koreans. So they had exchange of fire, but I don't believe he will do anything silly other than he will do a nuclear detonation and to bring more misery to his people.
Sridharji, many say that whether it is North Korea or Iran or even Russia, the technology is all Chinese, and therefore that China is basically testing their weapons through different proxies, and we have to wait and see how that goes. Clearly, the lettering will not be in Chinese; they're not that dumb. But at the same time, they are trying out all these things because they've never really fought a war. So we have to wait and see. Viewers, thank you so much for your support today. We've got an excellent crowd watching this program, and I would like you all to come back tomorrow because we're going to give you a lot of information. Took a little bit longer today because we had to cover some very, very significant fast-moving developments across the world. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Sridharji, a pleasure and joy having you again, sir, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow. Namaskar.
Namaskar, thank you, and have a wonderful day.